What's up, guys? It's Team Phoenix Cerulean back again. This time I'm gonna come at you guys with the premium Tachikaze deck profile. Okay, take it away.
Alright. So, to start off the bat, we're going to start with our grade 3s. We play 4 of our Ravenous Dragon Gigarex. So this is kind of our main grade 3 ride. We want to see it in our opening hand. If we're going first, we ride this, we gain 5k per each of our rear guards. It's a big Vanguard. They likely took it if they didn't have a perfect guard. Putting them to higher damage, this card drives the rest of your plays if you're going first. If you're going second, you got an Excel marker. There's no real minus to riding him first. Also, he can, if you ride him first, you can deliver gauges to all of your current rear guards, kind of building up for your strides, or for your later combo plays. Although your opponent should be dead on your first ride, so what am I talking about? Future combos. Alright, so I also play 2 Tyrant Deathrexes. This is mostly a backup grade 3 for Excel markers. The entire deck kind of centers around I need to gain an Excel marker first, and then from there build into my strategy. I'm not really using it for its Soul Blast gain power effect. It's mostly just there as a gauge, or as a Excel marker generator. Now, in my opinion, the best side grade 3 for the deck. It's yeah. So this is This is our Squallrex. This came out set of 11, I believe. No, it's Fighter's Collection. Anyway, its effect is it's similar to to the old Deathrex, where you can bind it from hand and give a unit 3k. The hand effect makes it so that you don't have to ride it. It's kind of like if you don't hit one of your other grade 3s, if you don't hit any of your other grade 3s, then you can bind it from hand and attempt to G-assist into one of them. And it has a effect from Bind Zone, which is after a Rex attacks Counterblast 1, you can retire any one unit, call this to a circle. The important part about this is you can call it to an Excel circle, so it becomes a 21k attacker, and it's disregards grade. So if I'm going first, I ride Deathrex or Gigarex, and I can then attack additional times on my grade 3 turn. If I manage to rip a crit there, they might even die right there while they're still sitting on grade 2, just because if I had like 2 or 3 of these in my hand and had the counterblast to go in for it. Also, he can trigger off of himself once you've got one on the board, because he himself is a Rex. So it's kind of a good way to extend the number of attacks in a turn. Alright, moving on to grade 2s. I play 4 Megarexes. Right. The other one is Gigarex, yeah. Alright, so this is kind of important, this is an important grade 2 because it has the Vanguard rearguard effect. When it attacks, you can retire one to draw one. It's important because you want to be able to dig through the deck to get to your combo pieces, and a lot of your attack extenders or gauge effects. It's also important because if you use his effect on your Neberos turn, you're pretty much exchanging a rearguard for a draw and gauge, and Neberos will count the gauge toward his own effect. So it's kind of like you +1 in the middle of your combo. Alright, and it's kind of the best ride just because it'll make up for your rushdown attack. So you can attack with a side, use the Vanguard effect, retire that card to draw one, and then your opponent is then forced to swing into you to give you counterblast. Otherwise, they counterblast deny you, and then you're still in a good spot. I also play 3 Diablo Cannons. This is our main grade 2 attack extender. Its effect is when it's engorged, if he is retired by the Vanguard after being engorged, you can discard one and then recall him, similar to So similar to Squallrex, you can use, or you can swing with him, engorge something, swing with Vanguard to reset your board. A lot of this deck focuses on when the Vanguard attacks, your rear guards come back as stood, so you have places to put triggers. It's not just I swing with my Vanguard twice, kind of thing. He also, when he's revived, he gets 5k, which is important for the Force matchup, because then he'll come back on the Excel Circle as 24, so even if they did hit a trigger, he'll still hit. And at a certain point, you're only looking to pull out cards from their hand anyway, because their deck will just sort of eat through your opponent's hand first stride if you can get to your combo. Yeah. I also play 2 Blytopses. This is mostly because I want to be... It's just in case I need to draw early. It's not really there for once I start striding to generate cards. It's mostly the standard deck way of playing where if I hit the Savage Raider, Noah, I can then use this for an immediate draw effect. Especially if I hit the Mega Rex, kind of like a perfect hand for Tachikaze. So yeah, this is... I'm only playing it at 2 because I don't need the late game drawing effects. It's only really there for the early turns. Also, if your opponent swings into it, if you just left it there on your grade 2 turn, if you had gauges under it, even if they attacked into it, you can use his effect because it is still considered retired when it's put into drop zone from battle. You can then counterblast when you add the gauge under it, so it's kind of like there's no point in them swinging into it if the skill can be triggered. So it's kind of like it's kind of free just putting it on board. Speaking of Savage Raider, I play 2 Savage Raiders. This is important because it's an on-play gauge effect. Oftentimes you'll need to be able to go immediately into it, or you'll need to generate gauges fast, and this is a good way of doing it. Also, the move effect makes it so you can realign your gauges for more appropriate spots, like putting them all on your Mega Rex or moving them to your back row for the burn. Because you can end up burning if you can't stride. Or it may be better to burn them from 4 to 5 instead of trying to... In case you can't Neberos that turn, the burn may come in handy. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention Gigarex is... You remove 5 gauges and you burn a damage.
Plus 5 to 3 units in the front row?
Yes, but
yeah.
I mean, the 5k doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I also play 1 Attempt Mammoth. I'm mostly playing this card because, well, its guard restrict is really strong. It kind of... See, I play this deck in Standard, and I noticed that it's kind of as valuable as the Deathrick spot in the deck. And that they'll both pretty much be PG-worthy guards values. Or Attempt Mammoth will take out enough shield to be worth a PG. I'm only playing it at 1 because, well, there was a version of this deck where I just attempted to revive this thing 3 or 4 times and swing in with them. But that deck was kind of just a meme. There is one combo with this deck where you combine it with a Stride or with the Gaia Dynast, and you can swing in with this when it has a gauge, swing with Gaia Dynast, revive it, and then he'll be able to swing an additional time, which will be 4 cards out of their hand. Otherwise, they just took free damage. Yeah, but Attempt Mammoth's really strong for the for breaking your opponent's plan to guard, just because it requires them to guard with 3 cards. Alright, moving on to grade 1s, I play 3 Sonic Noahs. Now, if anyone's seen a Tachikaze deck, Sonic Noah is important because it's a free gauge generation, in addition to an on-hit retire draw. So it'll filter 1 from the deck while building up your gauges for your planned attack. The reason I'm not playing this at 4 is because, well, you only really need to see 1 to 2 in a game. You want to ride it first if you're for the on-hit draw. You want to use 1 to, or you want to hit 1 on a normal circle just to generate cards, but you don't need the second one on your regular circle. It's kind of just, how do I say this? It's kind of like excess cards if you need to hit multiple Noahs. There's not really much to say about this other than it generates the gauges for your effects. And I'm also playing 3 Lacerex, or Lacete. This thing is hard to say. Anyway, I play 3 of this one. It's similar to Blytops. When it dies, you can pay the cost to add the gauge from under it. I play this at 3 because it's an immediate gauge effect similar to Savage Raider. So if it's kind of like a emergency use kind of card. Also, it's fast generation of cards when you combine it with Mega Rex and Death Rex and Squall Rex. Yeah, this kind of just is the early game. Use it to draw cards. It's not much to say about
you
it.
You can rush with it. If the opponent swings at it and you die, so you can still blast one, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like you're throwing this out there just in an attempt to either pull cards out of your opponent's hand or draw more cards, or
yeah, it comes out even, but
or put them to higher damage because they didn't guard. Yeah, there's no reason not to drop him on board. Well, there is, but that's only if you can't pay his cost. That can happen with this deck though, because I also play 2 Raven Petras. This card is actually, in my opinion, the most important grade 1, because its effect when you're at GB1, if he's retired by your Vanguard's effect, you can Soul Blast 1 and bring him back. If you then did not have any counterblasts, or if you then don't have any face-up counterblasts, you can countercharge 1. This is important because if your opponent's counterblast denying you so that you can't use effects, you can use him to unflip. But you will end up using him multiple times because his revival effect is not once per turn. So you can swing in with your Nabros. Oh, this also applies to a lot of your multi-attackers that I showed previously, where if you swing in with your Restanding Vanguard, you can engorge you can use the engorge effect, retire this or any of the other guys, use their cost to bring themselves back, swing in with the Vanguard again, and then you can, because engorge is not once per turn, but you can't activate engorge multiple times, you can still retire this, but you won't gain additional effects. It was still retired by an engorged Vanguard, so you then can pay the cost again to bring it back. So you'll be able to attack twice with this in a turn, or 3 times with it.
Interesting.
On a Restanding Vanguard attack. So it's kind of like you'll get a lot for little commitment with this card, and along with a lot of the other multi-attack cards. So that's why this card's important, and why if you can put triggers on your side, you do it, because you want even power distributions so that your opponent's forced to higher damage. I also play 2 Stride Fodder, kind of because if you've seen from my grade 3 lineup, oftentimes half my grade 3s I'll just throw away just so that I can get multi-attacks. So I need to play Stride Fodder so I can at least get to first stride. This deck can filter through the deck really quickly, so I'm not too worried about not being able to stride, but it can happen where I can't stride like 2 or 3 times, or I'll only be able to stride like once or twice in a game, just because there aren't as many cards that are 1 card stride costs. I also play a 1 of Skype Tarot. It's honestly just a filler spot. I didn't want to play a 4 of any of my other grade 1s. And the deck can burn through a lot of counterblast, which is why this is at a 1 of. but it's still very handy. It's a new grade 1, so it's a 10k shield, and the revival effect can come in handy on a rushdown turn if you have the counterblast to spare. Also, if you just need a card in hand to pay the cost for your Cannon Diablo, you can engorge, kill this, and then pay the cost for this as discard effect. And that way it kind of synergizes with each other. And then you can revive the Diablo Cannon. Alright. Our trigger lineup is 4 of the V heals, 4 draw trigger PGs. It's kind of PGs, heals, easy to explain. The new heals are 20k shields, important guard. I then play 4 of the new crits. I play an additional 2 crits, so it's 6 crit, and it's important for playing the V heal or the V crit because you can end up losing track of your soul really quickly. So being able to put this card into soul is very important. Not really much else to say about crits. I also play 2 front triggers. Now the reason I play I'm still playing fronts with this deck is because if you end up with a board with multiple revival effects on them, they'll come in at base power, which would either barely hit or barely miss your opponent's Vanguard, but you don't want to have to miss their Vanguard, which is why I play the front so that everything can still deal damage to them on the stride turns. It's also very important. Well, just flipping one on any stride turn when you reset your board is very impactful to the game. Alright. And our starter is pretty much Little Tyranno. Its effect is actually pretty good. It's when it's retired by your Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, put it into Soul, and then you look at the top 4 cards, call any 2 cards as long as they are a different name, and then the rest go to the bottom. So you'll know what the bottom 2 cards of your deck are, and you can do a lot of free calling with this. It's important because you can then, once you use this card's effect, you could filter into, and I've actually done this before, where I've filtered into a Diablo Cannon and then was able to pay the cost for this. So I ended up going from just 2 free cards, or from 2... I ended up going from 7 attacks to 11 attacks because I managed to get... to Superior Call a Recaller. Yeah, this is a very important because you're chanting the call, but oftentimes the call won't hurt you because you'll still be able to call something that hits. Alright. Moving on to G-Zone. The most important stride, Nebros. Its effect is when it's engorged, you can remove... Oh, this card was errated so that it's a combination of gauges and rearguards. So you can remove, after he's engorged, which is retire 1, or when he attacks, you choose any rearguards, retire them, and then he becomes an engorged state. So when he is engorged, you can remove 5 gauges and rearguards, and he then can restand after he attacks. Or no, he immediately restands, and you can... Yeah, he immediately restands, and you retire 2 of their rearguards. This is important because it's before your opponent can guard. So if they had guards that required rearguards like Gold Paladin, you can shut down their bigger guard values. Also, he has a secondary effect in G-Zone where you can Soul Blast 1, choose a unit, it becomes engorged, which is important for the Diablo Cannon, and it also gains a gauge, which then can further pay the cost for Nebros. It makes it easier to pay the cost the second time. Oftentimes, your first stride, you'll just flip up another Nebros, just so that you have 2 of him face up in the G-Zone. That way, the next time you go into him, it only requires 4 cards, not 6. Maybe even less if you still had gauges on your board. But this is kind of your strongest stride in the deck. Well, not the strongest, but it is the most lethal first stride you have. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I already mentioned that. I also play a one of Gilga. It's mostly I never used it because most of the time you're going into Nebros, but it is still important to potentially clear like a Gold Paladin or Royal Paladin's board, or just being able to clear the board is important. I mean, that and I guess there's space, but I'm considering to up Nebros just because there is another card that I may not want to play in the deck. Speaking of, I play 2 Gluttony Dogmas. Now, I'm considering to cut this card because Nebros is just better. When I was playing this deck, there isn't really a reason to go into this because this card requires a retire 5, Nebros is a retire 6, and then it's steadily reduced. I guess the reason you would go into this is for the power. He gains 10k, so if your opponent's already at 5 and they don't have double PGs for him, he can take out more guard. But other than that, it's really, Nebros is just better. Alright. I play a 2 of Devastate. This card's important for if you actually just don't have the cards to go into Nebros. If you, so his effect, Counterblast 1 when he's engorged, you can flip up a copy, and then you can choose 2 circles per face-up Generation Break. If you retire, and then all of those circles that you chose on either player's board are retired. So if you G-Guard, go into them, you can choose 4. If you did it second or third stride, 6, 8 kind of thing. And then when he retires from that effect, from the circle effect, if you retire 3 of your cards, he gains 10 in a crit and drive check. It's not really important for the deck. It's kind of just you're clearing out your opponent's units in an attempt to set up for your finishing stride. He also draws a card, so it's kind of like you didn't lose out on anything from engorging something. And oftentimes you're going to engorge a multi-attacker anyway, so his attack was still... the turn wasn't really wasted. Yeah. And then if Nebros fails and you just went through all of them, I play... Or if you just don't have the cards for it after, I play Gaia Dynast. This is actually a very strong card late game because its effect is when he's engorged, you can choose a unit, retire all of the units in the column, unflip one, and then that's not very important because it column wipes. But the other effect, whenever he retires a unit, you can counterblast 1 and bring it back, is very important because when he attacks, the unit will you'll be able to reset your front row, and then it'll gain 3k when they're revived. That's important because you'll go from... If your opponent's just at 5 and just has like 6 cards in hand, you'll go from a board that will barely hit to wiping out their entire hand, just because you'll go from... You'll go from a 4 attack turn to a 7 attack turn. In addition to the Excel Circle swing for 15k guards the whole time. He also gains 3k per, so they'll need to PG him. So it's kind of like if you just don't get to GB8, and this has closed out games for me. I also play a GB8. If you get there, you win, kind of thing.
Really strong.
the GB8's effect when he has when a unit is retired on your board, you can retire one of your opponent's units and give another of your units and himself 10k. This can get really high because of all the multi-tacking that you do, so you'll be able to stack this effect a lot in one turn. He also has an engorge effect that will trigger that effect as well, so it'll get really big when he attacks. Oftentimes he'll swing for 70, 80, and then revive cards, or kill something that revived itself. You'll give them 10k, so they'll come in at 30 to 40. And yeah, it just makes your attacks all hit. If you were worried about damage triggers, you shouldn't if you hit this guy. I play 5 G-Guards. I play 2 of the G-Flipping one. This is important because it gains 5k per open circle, including your Excel. So this will gain, if you just had no board with 1 Excel marker, it'll gain 30k, being a 45k G-Guard. This is important because it's your biggest shield in the deck. 2 of these will almost certainly stop a Zoa. Yeah, it's their shield alone, 45 each. That's 90 shield. Yeah, it's
Wow.
with your 10k base, that's already 100. I play a 1 of Blockade Gonda. It's kind of just its effect. You choose a unit, retire it, and then choose 2 other units when they're retired. Or when they're just retired during the turn, you can add them to hand. Whether your opponent retires them from an effect, attacks them, or you intercept with them, either way they'll go to your hand. This is important because you can combine it with Lacerex. You can use this, retire this, Soul Blast 1, add the card that was gauged under it to your hand so your G-Guard was free, and then intercept for additional shield. I also play 2 of the original Fighters Collection G-Guard. What was it? I don't really play this for a specific reason. It's a filler G-Guard. It's flip fodder for the other G-Guard. I am considering to change it out for one of the air elementals. Because it's a discard draw and I want to filter through the deck to hit all of my attack extenders. But it's been working for me so far.
It has a constant ability.
Yeah, so it doesn't.
Matters.
The constant effect doesn't really matter because if you're talking about the constant effect for the OTT matchup, its constant effect only gives it 5k if you meet the condition, which is the exact same as your heal. So you might as well just drop the heal. The only reason to go into this G-Guard in the OTT matchup would be if you wanted to get to GB 2 or 3. Really, that isn't really a reason to go into this as a G-Guard, other than
That was just there for.
you rode to grade 3
generic
first
flip.
and you can't use Blockade Gonda.
So just for generic flip?
Yeah, it's mostly just flip fodder. At least that's how I play it. Alright.
So another question. Would you go Excel 2 with this deck? Because I know Excel 2 is coming out like next week.
Alright, so this deck can go Excel 2, but I feel it doesn't need to. It can generate a lot of cards really quickly, so Excel 2 giving you card generation doesn't really help.
Hey, sorry about that. The film or the video cut off. Okay, continue.
Okay, so I mean,
What about Excel 2?
You can go with Excel 2, but I feel because of all the multitasking you do with the deck, you're going to sacrifice too much shield that you could have taken out of your opponent. Like,
So you want Excel 1 for the extra power?
so this will if you're using this, it'll go from a 17 to a 12, which won't hit force numbers. This one will go from a 14 after being revived, or a 24 after being revived, to a 19, which again, one trigger shuts it down. And then this card, if they were playing Luard or Victor, it's a 15k guard. If you do Excel 2, it'll go from a 21 down to a 16 on the Excel circle. which will then be another they hit a trigger, your turn ends kind of deal. And this deck kind of focuses on I'm still able to hit you with one, even if you hit one trigger. It's kind of just a full burst on your first stride. Yeah. So you can take Excel 2 with it. It's just you're going to hurt a lot of your revival attack, and that's kind of your end goal being to kill them with Neveros will falter a lot quicker. Yeah, that's just my opinion. This deck probably shouldn't take Excel 2. The standard deck will probably do it, but not the premium.
Okay.
Just because it focuses on multi-attack pokes.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to add?
Not really.
Okay. Okay, guys, so that was the Tachikaze Premium Deck Profile. Guys, thank you guys for watching. This is Team Infinity Cerulean signing out.